ATV-TALK, the podcast. Sit down with your host industry professional, Leonard Duncan, as the men and women from the ATV world bring their behind-the-scenes stories to life. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember, dream big. It could be your story one day.
Brian Fuller, welcome to ATV-TALK. How are you, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, my pleasure. We've been supposed to do this for almost 2 years, and the only reason it hadn't happened is because I'm piss poor scheduler.
Yeah, well, we had a group thing going there for a while. That was all right.
That was before we were ever published.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was episode number 5 when we did the round table.
Yeah, that was a good group.
Oh, it was an amazing show. I mean, it still gets listens today.
Wow.
You know, I mean, that's. You were asking me earlier, you know, how many episodes we have and all this. Like I said, we're probably in the 235 range total with the special events that we've done and things like that. In studio, like you are today, I don't do it very often. You're a friend. I've known you my whole life. Went to the same school. You were the local guy that was the fastest of all of us when we were racing, and
it goes back a ways.
Yeah, well, I remember you taking me practicing, and
yeah,
you know, when you were racing the nationals, and
yeah, it goes back 86, 87.
Well, we knew each other before then, though, too.
Yeah, the old Barona days.
Yeah, back then too.
Yeah.
You and your brother had 9110s built by Dad. Back when your dad would bring him to him to have them done.
132s.
Yeah, yours ran the whole time, and your brother's broke.
Wonder why.
Well, I wasn't technically going to go there, but yeah, you know.
That's one guy you didn't loan your bike to.
Well, you know, I heard he was a little hard on transmissions.
Yeah.
But that happens.
Yeah.
How did you come to start riding three-wheelers?
When my parents moved out to East County, Dunbar Lane, when I was in 3rd grade, my dad bootlegged the track in for us, made the property, you know, his own property to a couple tracks, and we just started with little 60s and 90s motorcycles and then evaluated from there. But that's where it all started when we moved out off of Dunbar Lane.
What level did you get to in the motorcycles?
At the CMC rank, I was top intermediate. A couple more races, I could have turned pro.
Really?
Yeah. That's when Bobby Sullivan had his accident, and my parents were pretty much scared of it from there on because, you know, we were going a lot faster than we used to. That's pretty much when the motorcycle part stopped, except for fun riding and dune riding. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that would have been, Bobby got hurt the day before Christmas in, what was that, 79. That's when Bobby got paralyzed.
That was a couple days ago.
Yeah, that goes back a long ways.
That was a life-changing experience for everybody in town, though. Not just you guys.
Yeah, that changed a lot of people's, if they weren't already, you know, top riders or factory riders or going to be factory riders, a lot of them kind of faded away to just riders instead of racers.
Yeah, because everybody did it thinking that you can't get hurt.
Yeah, and then when it happens right in front of you,
Yep.
Yeah, that's a shock for my parents and Bobby's parents, and you know, even R&D, which was Bobby's sponsor, was, you know, devastated for quite a while.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 15.
How do you remember what it did for you psychologically?
Yeah, the day of it I remember because Bobby crashed and he's laying there, and I was right behind him practicing with him, and my brother was right in front of him. So I was planning on catching them both. That was my goal. That's what I was trying to build up to. And when Bobby crashed, I was right there, and then the ambulance came and the CHP came, and the CHP guy was just a jerk. He wouldn't even let me ride up to my parents' house, our house, to let his parents know that they were going to take him to a different hospital. He tried to stop me and tried to grab me, and I pulled away, and I just roosted his car, rode up the hill, got my mom. Mom already knew. She came down, and then that cop tried to arrest me. And that didn't work out very well for him, but he mellowed out. But he didn't know what happened. He didn't know if we ran into each other, or if we knew each other. He was one guy. So that was where that's where the motorcycle ended for us. My brother tried it a little bit after that, Carlsbad, and he got a dislocated shoulder, and then he had kids, so he gave up. And then I did some motorcycle at Verona for a while with Garen on his little motorcycle,
Right.
for a couple of years with Craig Iavelli, and
Right.
you know, and it was fun when we were doing it with Craig and a couple friends, but had 2 kids and a wife, and so I kind of put that away, put a paddle on it instead of
A knobby?
instead of a knobby, and enjoyed the dunes, which I still do a lot. I still enjoy that.
Yeah, because you prefer the 2-wheeler in the dunes over the 3-wheeler or 4-wheelers, don't you?
Now I do, for sure. And even the side-by-side. I like the side-by-side, when it's crowded or something, but when the wind blows and the dunes are plush and virgin, there's nothing like it. So, it's a roller coaster ride made by you, You get 4 or 5 guys that want to ride with you and kind of race around. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we used to have a lot of fun. You'd lead and you were the racetrack.
Yeah, I would set the line, and then you guys would try to kill each other.
My son still's mad at me. So.
Well, we've had 6, 7, 8 really good riders trying to run my ass over many times.
I don't think we ever ran into you, have we?
Garen ran into me a couple times, but nothing that was really, because usually it's a sharp turn or,
Well, that's just your kid paying you back for making him take the trash out.
Yeah. The old rule was you can't pass outside the leader's line or inside the leader's line. You got to go around the outside. So if you want to try to pass, nobody wanted to pass me, but between the guys in the back, they couldn't pass each other unless they were outside the leader's line, which made it a little difficult for them.
Well, I remember passing on the outside or trying to pass on the outside, and you just get a face full of sand, and you really have to be aggressive, and it's really hard to take that inside line when you're turning with paddles. They grip really well. They don't drift the same.
And a bike turns a lot sharper.
Oh yeah,
and a lot easier. Went from the CR 500 to a CRF 450 02 to a 13 CRF 450.
Right.
Injected, which made it a lot easier to ride.
Made it easier on your body too.
Yeah, I missed the 500. The 500 was an animal, but definitely harder to ride,
Well, that was my bike of choice the few times that I came out and rode with you guys.
Yeah.
Just because I could put it in 3rd gear and I didn't have to do anything. I just followed.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite, but the 13 injected 450 with the suspension and all the stuff done to it is the dream bike, really, compared to what we rode in the past, for sure.
Right.
I'll probably get another one before I retire, but we'll see.
So, what made you buy a Tri-Z?
I went to Buttercup with some guys from school, which was Mark Wyckoff and Kevin Pinchotti, and we all had 110s and 185Ss, and I saw it and I thought it was kind of cool, so I bought it, and that was right after all the Bobby thing. It was a couple years later. Just decided I wanted to ride something.
You were closer to 20 years old at that point, weren't you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So it was 5 or 6 years later.
Yeah. So I wanted to get back to riding. I love the berm tracks at the dunes and stuff, and the Tri-Z. One of their friends down there had one, and he let me ride it, and it handled good, and so I bought it, and we raced it for a season and a half before we went to the Hondas. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was just something different, and it and that's when they talked me into going to Verona to start racing.
How long after you went to Verona did you end up talking to Lauren, or was it before you went up there?
That was the first time I went up there. I saw Lauren. Lauren came and talked to me, and number one asked me why I bought a Tri-Z, and number two asked me why I didn't come to Danny's Machine Works to get my tires and stuff. And ever since then, it took off from there. But yeah, the Tri-Z was a good bike. It wasn't as good as the Honda 250R, but we did a lot of work to it to make it work.
Yeah, Lauren spent a lot of time changing that thing around.
Yeah.
With the fuel tank system and fitting a bigger carb on there, and they put a pipe on it and did some cylinder porting.
Yeah, a little bit. It stayed stock for a while, and then definitely was getting out performed as far as starts and uphills and stuff like that. So.
But you also had a good feel for making it work, so you had some success on it right away.
Yeah, we did a couple championships at Verona in the expert class, and we raced at Carlsbad a bunch on that TT track and the Roundy Round.
Yep.
And Lauren and I went a few places with it. We went to Phoenix and a couple places, and that was basically following the pro circuit, as the ones that Marty and Stevie and all those guys were racing those little warm-up things before the Nationals started. So we followed that a little bit, did a couple of those races, which we won a couple of them. So that was kind of where it took off for the Honda.
So when you guys decided to, because you each both bought a Honda
at the same place at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Honda at Lemon Grove?
No, it was where your dad was, I think.
El Cajon?
I think it was Valley.
Really?
Yeah. We both went in there and bought them and took them to your right there by Lee Bright's shop,
where the old Danny's Machine Works used to be.
And we drag raced him down the alley, and I beat him on the first one, and then on the second one we swapped, and he beat me. So we decided that the bike that was the fastest one became the race bike, and the bike that came the second became the practice bike.
I guess that's one way to solve it, right?
We just drag race a couple, 3-4 times, and one bike was a little bit faster than the other.
Yeah.
Can't explain it. Never even tried to figure it out.
No.
And he built that one into a race bike, and we did the same thing to the practice bike, which I still have that bike.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. Kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Well, not only that, but you had a great experience traveling the Nationals.
Yeah. The traveling part, was kind of grueling, especially if you have a bad outing, it makes it kind of hard. But you have a good outing and a good trip, and we've been go all the way to Texas and get rained out. Got to drive all the way back. You lose your entry and everything's gone. So there was some tough stuff there. I had some help. My parents helped me a little bit, and some of the construction guys that my dad was working for and we were doing work for would give me $100 for gas here and there, and a couple things. But all in all, it was to keep me motivated, keep me out of trouble, and stay on the path of some type of success.
The $100 for gas nowadays sounds like a joke.
Yeah.
But back then, what gas was $1 something a gallon or less?
When I got my driver's license, gas was 85 cents a gallon. I'll never forget it. right at the Chevron in Lakeside.
Well, when I got my license, which was a couple years later, they'd give me $20 and you'd buy a can of Copenhagen and fill your truck up and they'd drive around for the weekend.
Yeah, and a 6-pack or a 12-pack.
Well, I didn't want to throw that in there too much, but yeah. We had a lot of fun here, in East County with so many different forms of entertainment, from riding our 3-wheelers to motorcycles. The sand pits had that one pond that you could ride jet skis in.
Took our jet skis in there many times. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The sand pits on the Santee side was pretty good. We had a couple good tracks out there that we would ride. That's when we were doing the Nationals on the 3-wheeler. Sean Finley and I were riding together, practicing a lot together, until Kawasaki told him not to ride with me anymore.
Because he was a Honda guy?
Well, because he was on a Cowie and I was starting to him and I were pretty equal as far as riders, and they didn't want him riding with me anymore, so he had to sneak out to go riding with me.
How would they know?
I don't know how they would know. They probably wouldn't. He just said that they don't want you to ride with me anymore. Because he was coming to my tracks, actually. So,
nice.
Yeah, but yeah, it was fun. I miss him. I don't see him much.
I correspond with him a little bit to have him come on the show. He's lives in Arizona, and he's really busy. He's always working on a project, and if he's not working on a project, he's riding a dual sport bike or riding a mountain bike.
Yeah. I haven't talked to him in years, but yeah, we used to ride a lot. And those Cowies are fast.
Yeah. Did you ever ride one?
I rode them, but not really competitively. I shot the hill with the Kawasaki brothers that used to race their Buttercup and stuff, and then I rode his around the track a couple times. It just feels weird to get on something different and try to ride it like you do your bike. It takes a while to be able to hit it at the same speed you did on your bike.
Right.
It's definitely a learning curve.
One of the questions I had is you would practice here on the tracks that we had here, and I don't remember any of the tracks here having any really big jumps.
No, they were mostly natural terrain. Kind of, drop-offs, ledges you got to jump up, or horseshoe turns, stuff like that. The track that my dad made for my brother and I when we were younger was it was about a 2.5 minute lap time, and it was pretty gnarly, especially when you don't groom it. So it was a tough track, but we've had a lot of local pros race or ride that track for practice that used to come up and park at my parents' house and ride up there and spend a lot of time, grooming that track. And
the where I was going with that is when you go to Raleigh, North Carolina, they have some just enormous jumps on the track, doubles.
Yeah, but most of the time on the 3-wheelers and stuff, they weren't as big as you think, like today's standards. The jumps were more like ski jumps, long jumps. They would put a little bump after it, so if you wanted to try to double it, you could. If it was like in Raleigh, North Carolina, it was inside of an infield, so it was more of a TT type motocross track. Was just a bunch of flinger jumps. They weren't anything that was. Most of them weren't even doubleable because they were so far apart. So it just depends on where you went at the Nationals. If you went to Loretta Lynn's or something way more motocrossy, you go to Gainesville, Florida, way more motocrossy and sandy, which was right up my alley. And then you get to some of these other ones that are just put into fairgrounds that are more like TT tracks. That was the one thing I didn't like about the 3-wheeler races is I wanted to do motocross. That was my thing. And half of the format for the whole year was TT and motocross.
How'd you fare in the TT races?
TT, once we went pro, the bikes that they put on the track on the TTs was a little more performance than what we had. Those guys were a little crazier than I were, especially the roundy round ones. But as far as the TT tracks that weren't, 100 mile an hour, it was a little better for me, but motocross was definitely where I wanted to go.
Was Gatorback your favorite place to go?
After that race, it was. We never went back though.
Right.
We never had the same one there again. But yeah, we did it. We went. That was our first national. We won the first moto, which was very, very good success there. And then we went to Loretta Lynn's after that. Tennessee, and that one was good. We did a good finish there, but those were good motocross tracks. And you talk about the difference between humidity and raining and bugs about the size of your hand. It's just I can remember sitting in Florida at Gainesville. Lauren had to take the pit over and fan me because you couldn't even tell you were breathing because the humidity was so hot and the temperature was so hot. You're just sweating, And it took a lot out of a lot of people. A lot of people get heat stroke from those kind of things, especially the long motos.
How long were the motos then?
20 minutes on the 3-wheelers. So they weren't very long. They were about 10, 12 laps. On a motocross track, a long motocross track, that was pretty good. but it's the humidity and the heat. If you don't live back east, it's hard to experience that stuff. It's like when you go to Hawaii and you step into the water and it's 80 degrees and the air temperature is 80 degrees, and everything. The humidity is 80, and you don't even know that nothing changes. They all feel the same. It's very weird. But yeah.
Did you have any luck in the TTs at all?
As the amateur level, we had a lot of luck on the TTs. On the pro level, I didn't have much luck on the TTs. I didn't have anywhere to practice on an oval or on a real TT track. All my tracks had a couple turns that were TT, but everything else had like a set of whoops or a G out dip thing. On my tracks that I had, everything was based around motocross for the most part. Everything I practiced, I didn't have anywhere to go that had a real TT track that I could practice on.
I know, because we went to Porterville, and you rode the amateur 250, like the 250A class.
Yeah.
And didn't you win it?
Yes. Well, no, I got third on the 250.
And you won the.
And I won the 200X. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a last minute entry deal to throw it together.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Your dad cracked me up on that one. I asked Lauren if I could race the 200 because he says, if you can get him to sign you up because we're late, you can race it. I said, all right. So I ran up to the booth and they took my entry. We had 45 minutes before the gate dropped. So your dad gave me a crash course on how to ride a four-stroke 200. And he says, he told me this is the clutch, this is the brake. And he goes, when you take off, hammer it, and when it stops moving, count to 3 and then shift. And then again, when it stops moving forward, count to 3 and then shift. He goes, you're going to rev this thing more than you would your two-stroke. I said, okay, I never rode it before. And after 3 restarts, which made me a little nervous because I was the biggest guy on the track.
Did you hole shot all of them?
No, but it was close. I hole shotted the first one, and then they red flagged it 3 times. So the third time when it came around, I was in second and made quick work out of the guy, and then just drove away from him, and that was pretty cool. That was one of the most amazing things. Just throw it together right now, go, hurry up, get your boots on.
Right.
It's kind of like not what you want to do when you're getting ready to go do a amateur national, but it definitely turned out well. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a highlight of all of ours, winning that. It kind of put things into perspective a little bit that we could compete.
Yeah. Yeah, because there were some kids there that had some fast equipment. They just couldn't drive it into the turn. So you just got to get on them, and all you got to do is, once you get to them and put some pressure on them, they would just fade out a little bit and turn inside of them. And then that bike had, even though I was probably the heaviest guy on the track, was just hold it on until it stops moving and then shift.
Tim Askins had rode it in the pro class and rode it to 6th.
6th, yeah.
And if he would have relaxed a little, he probably could have put it on the podium.
He could have got 3rd or 4th. He was close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was in the lead group.
Mm-hmm. I didn't watch it enough because I had my own stuff going on, but I did. I seen it going on. But yeah, he was there. Some of those guys, they just, whether it's the fuel or what they're running or, just seem to be faster. Even though Sparks was there, Curtis Sparks, he's a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's walking away from all these little kids on a 200X.
Right.
And you're like, wow. And I mean, I did it with the amateur kids. That's a little different, but at the pro level, that was pretty spectacular because he's not a little guy.
No.
I never was.
He was fairly thin for as tall as he is.
If I was 6'3" or 4.
I don't know, he's taller than I am, by, like you are too. I mean, I have to look up to both of you, so it's,
Yeah, that was fun times.
Oh, dude, I loved going to Porterville. I remember my truck, my quad, or my bike in the back of the truck, going up there, and Dad wouldn't let me drive.
Some people don't like to be riders; they like to be drivers.
Well, yeah. Fortunately, back then I couldn't argue. Now I can.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been all over. We went to Washington, you know, racing with you up there. That was all fun stuff. That was Washougal when we did that, wasn't it?
Yep, we raced Washougal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you started racing the work stuff after I had already stopped racing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then got Garen into it, you know, through the Barona thing, and then it just snowballed into more. And then Kyle, they're almost 5 years apart. So Kyle was a lot younger, so they kind of graduated, and then Garen started helping Kyle. Next thing you know, they were both racing works. And,
We were wondering if Kyle was ever going to start.
yeah, well, he's so young, and you know, he loved the dunes and loved the desert. So he did very well at that works. He got like 6 amateur championships. So and Garen did good at works. Got a handful of them. But 3 in a row was pretty badass.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That can never be done again.
No. That was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to talk him into not overthinking it, because, you know, doing 3 races like that, and then, you know, the pro-am at the same time, you know, that was a lot of work on your end too.
Oh, there was a group of people making sure that happened.
Yeah, because you run your first moto, and then you run the second one because you just did the B class, and you do the C class, or you know. And he was, yeah, same with Kyle. You know, they riding multiple classes, and you know, Garen had 3 bikes to ride. Kyle only had 1.
Right.
And then it became Kyle had 2, and need a bigger trailer. I think work.
Honey, we need to bid those other 2 jobs.
Yeah. Hi.
Add a couple dollars in there. Yeah, we're hurting here.
I enjoyed it all. I think the Works family was pretty good. We already knew most of them. You know, a lot of them with Doug Roll, and you know, you go on and on and on. You know, it seemed like, you know, Timmy Shellman and all those guys are just, you know, Al, Big Al, you know, all of them. Davey.
Didn't you race against Doug Roll?
Yeah, Doug and Mike. Yeah, many times.
Down at District 38?
District 38, we did that, and the Carlsbad races, that was District 38 also. Yep. Yeah.
And didn't Marty and Mike Coe both race the Carlsbad race, or was it just Marty?
Marty did. Mike Coe rode the TT.
Right, on the Suzuki.
On the TT track there. Yeah. And Stevie Wright raced at Verona. We raced against him many times. Yeah. Yeah. He was riding a quad and I was riding a 3-wheeler.
Did you beat him?
Every time. He was right there. I mean, he's beating on the door. He just couldn't get around me. And, you know, I thought for sure the quad was going to have better success, but I don't know what performance bike he had. My 3-wheeler was like my race bike, but not, you know.
Right.
And I rode it a lot. So he was there, but he just couldn't get around me.
Was it the Verona ATV track, or did you race the motorcycle track down on the bottom?
There was the ATV track. Yeah. Yeah, the ATV track. That was a good track. They had the TT course. Remember, we used to do both of them the same day. You'd race a motocross, 2 motos, and then you'd go do 2 motos of TT.
Yeah, I love that.
Which was a lot of work and a lot of long day.
But we all had fun.
Oh yeah, it was great times. It's, you know, Kim, my wife, used to go. Back then, she's my girlfriend. She went to every one of them.
Yep, and I remember when Marty came out and was racing with us and busted his collarbone.
Busted collarbone.
That's before we all knew him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. 3 weeks later, we beat him in Gainesville.
Nice.
Yeah. He came back 3 weeks after that, or that might have been 4 with his collarbone. I don't know if he broke his collarbone or what he did. But
he was hurt, yeah.
He was hurt, yeah. Yeah.
But we were all in awe that day.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You had all big eyes seeing a pro guy for the first time.
Well, he passed me.
Yeah, he was in the lead when he crashed, wasn't he?
Yeah. It's right in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
exactly.
So we used to just take a blue tarp and slam it in the window of my truck and put two poles out there to hold up for shade.
Yeah, before we could buy an Easy Up, or before you even really could find them.
Yeah, 3-wheeler barely fit in my Blazer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you bought that old Ford pickup, the blue Ford pickup.
Yeah. And I bought that so we could go places, and we were able to get 2 3-wheelers in that. If it wasn't for that, we couldn't. But yeah, I had that for a while.
Oh, I remember when we went up to Washington and raced that race up there at Strataline?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then years later, we go back and race a works race there.
Exactly. Totally different. Didn't even feel the same. You're looking at it going, is this the same track?
Well, when we went there the year before, where the grandstands were, they were in the same place, but all of the entry in the pits was on the opposite side of the grandstands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like going to a whole other place.
Yeah, and the downhill over on the Gary Denton made the picture, the cover of the ATV News or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
They totally changed it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that guy around either.
Gary.
Have you interviewed him yet?
Yeah, Gary. I interviewed him right around the time he went into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he got into the Hall of Fame.
When I was racing with Lauren, and he was at one of the races, and I don't remember which one it was. It was in Texas. I went over and I talked to him, and I go, "You remember Randy Hess?" And he's all, "Yeah, Randy and I used to race together all the time." And we talked for a couple minutes about Randy, and and him and Gary Denton buddies. And then you start looking at the FMF catalogs, and Randy's pictures all on there, and you start looking at everything. There's Gary Denton's picture. Like, holy cow, where these guys come from, But, yeah, that was pretty cool to see Gary Denton, winning all those championships, and then asking about, Randy Hess was kind of cool. I've known Randy since I was a youngster, and he was a good motocross racer too.
There's so many people from this area, Southern California region.
Oh yeah.
That in the 70s and 80s and probably early 90s that were just
the guys
so
used to go race at my mom's or practice at my mom's with Baderman A and
I haven't heard that name forever.
Yeah, Mike. Can't remember his last name. There was like 4 or 5 guys that would go up there every once in a while and ride religiously. And I'd go up there every once in a while just to see what was going on. Those guys put in their motos, 30, 40-minute motos. Do 2 of them. They'd come back down to the truck, take some drinks, go back up, another 45-minute moto, load their stuff up, and go home. But, it was a great track. It was Carlsbad type track, or maybe even like Saddleback kind of. And, those are iconic tracks.
You were never an athlete in high school.
No, my athletic was racing, because when we quit racing motorcycles, I was at my pinnacle of shape. I could do 100 sit-ups, 60 sit-ups in a minute, on and on and on. But we used to run around the track at my parents' house down below around the hayfield every day. And we'd run up the hill, which...
Yeah, I'm not going to do it.
Back and forth. And, my training was actually better than my brother's was at that time, because my brother was starting to date and starting to do the hanging out at the drive-in thing, and I couldn't go. My mom wouldn't let me go. So I was training, I was riding, I was doing my thing, and that's how I got so much closer to them as far as performance-wise. Getting close to being able to, hang with the Bobby and my brother and, Ricky Johnson when Ricky was little. And, wasn't too far off. A second and a half at Carlsbad behind Ricky's not very far off.
Right.
Who knows what he might have missed a shift or who knows, but still every time we go, you're right there getting ready to turn pro, and all that bottom fell out of that. So when I started, after it all got pulled out, we stopped. So when I started, that everybody wanted me to play football because
you're big.
Yeah, and I was in really good shape. So a lot of the coaches and stuff tried to recruit me. I says, no, I'm an individual sport kind of guy. I'm not a big team sport guy. And your brother kind of tried to help push that along, but it didn't work out very good.
Well, you were big, and they needed some help.
Yeah. I think the one that set it off was it wasn't Coach Till. I can't remember the coach. They were doing the presidential thing where you had to run the mile and all that, and all of the track squad was out there doing the same thing at the same time I was, and I beat them all. And what am I? 14, 15 years old, but I didn't have my driver's license yet. And that's when the coach saw me and said, "Hey, you need to come out for football and this and that." I'm like, "Nah, I'm good."
You ever regret that at all?
No, because we had plenty of things that my parents were doing. We were going to the river, the desert. We didn't quit riding, we just quit racing.
Right.
So we were going to the dunes and all that kind of took over it. And then, of course, girlfriends and Donnie having a baby with, Donnie Jr. and it just, things evolved. But, and we still do the same things. We just, I just don't race anymore.
Well, when Garen and Kyle both stopped racing, you guys rolled right back into the dunes and right back into the river.
Yeah. We still go to the river a lot. The dunes, I don't think, as long as I can stand, I don't think I'll ever quit going there.
Right.
It's just it's just a free ride that you can make your own roller coaster ride. And if you get a good group of people that are with you and you're riding, and some are on bikes, quads, whatever. And as long as you give them a good trail to follow on, it's safe and it's a lot of fun.
It's hard to find a good leader the way you flow through the dunes. Not everybody sees that same line that you do.
Yeah, I got a different vision on it. I've been doing it so long. I think I can kind of read the dunes. And we when we do our fast rides, which some of them are very fast, I go to the same dunes that I know.
Right.
So when we go high up on a dune, I can look over the side and see if there's anybody else out there. Most people don't even realize that's what I'm doing.
Right.
So I can keep everybody from, being somewhat safe. And then you're in that same dune, and you can kind of tell nobody's out there. But yeah, that's the funnest part for me is
we're so focused on following that line and trying to get into that second spot that we don't even realize that the actual dune portion that you're riding in is not very big.
Right.
We're covering a lot of the similar areas.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of turn. Well, most people don't like to turn that much, but on a bike in the dunes, turning is everything.
Right.
And if you want to be a jumper, you can. The hazard of jumping in the dunes is, burying the front tire when you land. And
right.
That's why you don't see me jump very much.
No, I've just never seen you. I think I've only seen you go over the bars on the motorcycle twice.
Yeah.
And I think it was twice in the same weekend.
Probably true. Yeah. It happens.
You cut a witch's eye on that 500 one time, and the front end just sank and threw you over the bars.
Yeah.
It was me, Alan, and Brian.
That was in that big hole.
Yeah, you just cut that. You were just cutting just so close to it, and the front end just sank
all the way to the flipping fender.
Yeah, right over the bars.
That one hurt a little bit.
Well, yeah, you were a little dingy afterwards.
Yeah, and then Brian tried to start it and
fell over
and tumbled all over the bottom.
I mean, he was still a kid then.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to hardly believe he's in his 40s now.
I know. He comes by quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right across the street. So.
Yeah. Well, Garen's got a house now with 3 babies.
Yeah.
That's even harder to believe.
It is harder to believe, even for his mama. I mean, it seems like it happened so fast.
Well, not to take light off of what we're talking about with you, Garen and I are sitting down having a conversation about what we're going to do. What plan is there? What's going to happen? What's the upcoming year going to be? And him and I worked out 2 different proposals: riding a Honda, riding a Yamaha. What are we going to do if we got to develop Yamaha? This is what it's going to take. And I said, Garen, you're the one that's going to have to go to your dad, and you're going to have to work out the proposal and come back to me, and then we just develop it and we go. Whatever we go, whether we ride Honda or whether we ride Yamaha, okay. You have to decide. And, we had a date set when we would get back together, and he didn't respond, and I was like, Garen, we got to figure this out. And He just calls me on the phone and he goes, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna retire." I'm like, what? Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, great. That's what you really want to do. I don't even think he'd told you yet.
No, we hadn't started doing anything for the next season, but I mean, we had bikes available.
Right.
You know, we had enough to get started. I don't think you could have gone through another season with the decade of bikes that we had.
They were well used.
There was a couple good ones, but I mean, you do 5 works races on a highly ridden quad with a pro on it after 5 main events or whatever you want to call them. That thing's
it's done.
You got to turn into a practice.
I mean,
bike.
your engine rebuilds turned into every 3 race because the transmissions couldn't take it, and they were building the courses to abuse them. They weren't intending for them to be abused.
Yeah.
But they were abusing them.
Yeah, some of the rock terrains and going over K rails. I never liked that. I got on Timmy many times. Why are you doing that? You're just ruining everybody's shit. Literally.
Certain obstacles were okay, but others, it's just like I never wanted them to make mud holes.
Yeah.
I never wanted them to do that because it was always the sand would always get in and just age the bike out of it. Right.
We have enough mud races. They don't need to make mud races.
Right.
And they made many mud races.
Oh yeah, they water them so much.
Yeah. And, you know, I miss the Carlsbad, Saddleback, South Bay Speedway. You know, those ones that we did when we were younger.
Yep.
You know, Carlsbad. I rode Carlsbad the last day it was open on my CR500.
Oh, really?
Yeah, McGrath was there, Brian Hughes, a bunch of guys that I knew, you know, that I went with that I knew, but a bunch of guys I hadn't seen in a long time. And that, you know.
You knew most of all of those guys, though, too, didn't you?
Somewhat. Those guys were younger than I was.
Right.
You know, McGrath and all them. But, yeah, it was sad to see it go, you know. But, you know, Saddleback, I understand, still there, but, you know, I've never looked at it. But
is it still a racetrack?
I heard it is, but I don't know.
Who goes there? I've never heard of them even having an event.
Yeah. But yeah, some of those big iconic tracks, you know, Four Corners and all those.
Yeah, gone.
Yeah.
Carlsbad, you talked about Carlsbad now with the youth of our industry, and they don't have a clue what it is.
No.
And ABC Sports won't ever play that Supermoto race. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool, you know?
Yeah.
The bikes on the drag strip, then they go into the dirt. Well, we raced that similar course.
Yeah, that was the long course at Carlsbad.
Yep.
Yep, I rode that many times. On the quads and
the bikes.
They didn't really do the bikes on my side when I was racing there, CMC in them. Mm-hmm. But the Carlsbad, there was only
Tank Slappers did it.
Yeah, there was only 2 or 3 different ways to configure Carlsbad.
Right.
You know, there was 2 big downhills. One you could bypass it, or you could go up it. And there was only 3 different possibilities of Carlsbad.
You know, I've had this conversation with some modern day motocross guys, and none of them believe me. But do you remember going to Carlsbad with no grooming? There was no grooming between motos. They turned the sprinklers on in the morning, watered the track. You went out and practiced, and what it was what it was.
They watered it all night.
Yeah.
Then you went out and practiced. And there was no more water after that.
Right.
They never really groomed anything.
No.
And you could groom out in front of your starting position or whatever, but that was it.
Yeah, they had water on the start, and that was the only place that ever got water.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the end of the day, it was a flipping hard as a rock. And
Yep.
yeah.
Slick.
Yep.
And then all the bumps were in a different place.
Yeah.
You couldn't go race that place. You couldn't go race there and have the same pothole or the same gotcha hole in the same place ever.
Yeah, because they rip it every time. That's
Well, they never even did that. They just water it and it freaking formed differently.
They ripped it a bunch of times, but by the time you did practice in the motos, it was hammered.
I just remember that nowadays you go to a motocross race and they prep the track in between motos, and I'm thinking, guys, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, think about when Ricky was racing 45 minutes, 2 45-minute motos in a day.
Yeah. That's when they were men. You know, Roger DeCoster on those old piece of shit Suzukis.
Yep.
You know, and all those guys riding those bikes. You know, I got some really good vintage pictures of DeCoster and a couple other guys that my mom and Kim have found that are signed, pretty spectacular to see them. But yeah, you look at their bikes, and their handlebars are like this wide, they're chrome, you know. Their cables are all flipping all over the place, you know. Front drum brakes. Yeah,
I remember when I was a kid, when I was just breaking into racing, Roger DeCoster was the guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And now look he's worked for Honda, KTM.
Yep. Still at KTM, isn't he?
Yep. He brought Dungey back so that they could fix the bike.
Yeah.
We had this conversation a couple weeks ago.
We did.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that we've seen in our lifetime, the young people in the ATV world, even the young people in the motorcycle world, don't even understand the heritage of where it comes from.
Well, yeah, unless you've been around like your dad and, you know, you guys, Lauren, and, you know, and you even look like the guys from R&D. I don't remember their names, but the company's still there. And, you know, those guys used to roll in a flipping minivan and, you know, do their thing they were helping Bobby Sullivan and a couple other people, and you'd see other guys that had their little support teams. And, you know, it was pretty amazing, you know. Mike Tripes raced Carlsbad and won all 3 pro motos in one day. I'll never forget it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, 2 motos for the 125, 2 motos for the 250, and 2 motos for the 500, and won all of them in the pro class.
Oh.
On a Suzuki.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. That to me was.
That's 6 hours of riding
on a beat to shit course.
On a motorcycle that had, what, 6 inches of travel?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more?
Yeah, give it 7.
You know, wow.
And you watched that, and I watched it, you know, because my brother was in it, and, you know, they were all in it.
Right.
Obviously, they weren't in the 500 class, but he did them all. Everyone.
And won them all. I didn't know Suzuki had a 500.
Well, it was a 370 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easier to ride.
The open bike.
It was easier to ride than the 500s.
Unbelievable. That was a big day for, you know, people that knew him. You know, that's like, wow.
Yeah, that's when men were men. You know, I mean, and they were 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, that was part of the Golden State Series, which was CMC.
I remember we went to Carlsbad, and I'm pretty positive you were there. When Ricky was racing for Yamaha.
Yeah.
And in both motos, he's leading. And like at the same time mark, the shock blew both times.
Yeah, I was at a lot of those when they put the first water-cooled head on the Yamaha, and Ricky was racing it. And that was like space-age technology. And, you know, I don't even know how they pumped water to the radiator. I have no idea how it even worked, but you could just tell because the head on it was...
Right, totally different.
Totally different, and that's one of the things that they did. I don't remember who his mechanic and who he was working for then from Yamaha, but that was something that, you know, Bernie Burnworth and all those guys were doing it with Scott and Ricky, and, you know, it was
right.
Amazing to see it. You look at it like, are you guys cheating?
Sure, somebody was.
I don't even think they really cared back then. You know, it's not how fast your bike is at Carlsbad, it's how long you can hang on to it.
Right.
You know, you can have a rocket ship, but you're not going to hang on to it unless you're just, you know, Danny Magoo Chandler. You know, that guy was unbelievable to watch. You ever watched him ride?
Very, very little. Very little. Heard a lot of good stories.
Well, he won the USGP at Carlsbad.
Right.
And when he came down the downhill,
we were there.
He landed in the berm at the bottom. And it's like, and he did it every time. And we won it. It's like that guy. And then they show him do the jumps out there down at Otay.
Right.
Jumping higher than the helicopter. And when he landed, all the spokes blew out of both wheels.
Oh!
That guy was a nut. But man, when you watch him when he's on his game, yeah, that guy was an animal.
So many of those guys came from an era at this time when you had to be tough.
Oh, they were tough. Yeah. You go back and look at the Johnny O'Mara and the Ricky Johnsons and probably even Scott Burnworth and the guys that started getting factory rides, that the training that they got and the help that they got, there's no way the average guy that was racing close to them at the level we were, and then once they got that training and that bike and everything, they just stepped out another 8, 10, 15 seconds on it. It's just instantly.
Ricky said that it was pretty phenomenal being with Yamaha and the things that they did. And then when he goes to Honda, if you listen to his episode, he talks about, they roll his new bike out, where when they rolled out the Yamaha, you had to put it together, When they roll out this Honda and then they lay all these new parts out that you're going to test, 3 pipes and a different cylinder and different shocks and forks and he's just scratching his head like, wow, I just hit the lottery, back before you knew what a lottery was.
Yeah, and that's all good training for him because you're on 3 or 4 different types of things and you find things you like or don't like.
Right.
I can remember your brother telling me going out shock testing, he goes, you'll wear a bike out just shock testing. You got a bitchin' quad sitting there that's race ready, and when you're done testing shocks, it gets completely rebuilt.
Yeah, because you're so many hours.
It's junk. Yeah.
You think about it, a lot of people don't realize this. The Baja 1000 is roughly 22 to 25 hours. Okay, when you're done with that 22 to 25 hours, that machine is toast.
Yeah.
It's done. You need to go to the frame, start over.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
The heat that goes through the shocks, the damage to the engine, because, we're not going to put a filter on when we're supposed to. Not like when we tell customers to take care of the wrecked bike. No, we're going to run that filter till it damn near so full of dirt that it won't breathe anymore. Yeah.
It won't even run.
And it already sucked dirt, so the motor's wounded. But we put a clean filter on it and dump some more gas in it and say, go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't shut off.
Yeah.
Don't let it die.
That's like my injected 450 now. It's 106 hours on it or something. I bought it with 12.
Right.
It's time for it still runs good. It still starts. But that...
I know, not everybody knows, and not everybody agrees with how it works. They're single-cylinder Indy cars.
Yeah.
High lift cam from the factory, the tolerances, the way the motors work, they're incredible, and they're revving higher than what a Banshee does.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm wringing its neck every single time I get on it. Most of my rides, in the dunes and stuff, sometimes you hit 3/4 throttle. Most of them are just half throttle.
Have you ever hit the rev limiter?
Very rarely.
Well, you were always easy on equipment anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's just it's amazing to see what a high performance bike does and how long it lasts compared to a high performance bike that's from out of the box, how badass it is, but yet it's nothing compared to the performance that you could put into it.
Oh yeah.
It's 20% difference.
You could make that bike unrideable in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a lot of people do. They get a bike that's unrideable and they can't ride it.
Well, Ricky basically said that he deals with a lot of younger riders, and he says, well, you take this thing off the showroom floor and they want to go instantly do all this suspension work and do this and do that. He says, no, adjust your bars and shut up and go ride it.
Yeah.
He says, I'm slow and I'm faster than you, and if I could still go that fast, you just need to ride it.
Yeah.
Because it's so good from the factory.
Yeah. I do that with people in our group. Sometimes they bring their kids out to ride, whether it's a quad or a 3-wheeler or even a motorcycle. They're trying to show them how to ride in this, and they come over and ask me, I says, I'll help teach your kid how to ride. Okay, good. So I talk to them and say this, that, and the other, and I take them completely away from the parents. 250 yards away.
Right.
I carry a tire with me. They're looking at me like, what are you doing? Teach the kid how to turn around a tire, teach him how to turn around a bush, teach him how to stop. First thing you got to do is learn how to stop. The first thing they teach your kid how to do is go fast.
Right.
That's the last thing you teach your kid how to do.
Right.
Take them out there 20, 30 minutes later. When they come back to camp, they don't run into the side of the motorhome. They stop.
Right. And motor doesn't die.
Yeah. I'm done. Have fun.
Exactly. I think that so many people have lost sight of what it is to train a racer per se. So if your child's gonna race, and what the things that you need to teach, you brought Garen out on a TRX 450R with stock shocks, stock A-arms, stock axle.
Yeah.
We changed the tires on the thing, and I believe we might have changed the handlebars.
I think we did.
And he raced that for the first whole season that he raced.
Yeah. His first real race on that was Pismo.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was up there at the compound where Kawasaki shot the photos.
You know,
When Eichner rode the Polaris.
that was his first real works race as far as what he got, the suspension and everything.
Did he have? He didn't have suspension in that race, did he?
Yeah, he had the wide A arms and the rear end and the radio.
Okay.
Yeah, when they raced up there at
You had him race some works races though with no suspension.
yeah, oh yeah, for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, Pismo was the one that sticks out the most because he just it was his first real works race as whatever. I think he was a B rider.
Right.
And he might have been a C rider. And he went out there on that works in the dunes and just completely destroyed all of them. And then they protested him. And Sean looked at it, looked at his lap times, and says, "You guys just shut up. He's a sand rider. Go ride in the dunes."
Yeah, because I mean, he's a dune rider and he just loved it. And
Yeah.
I know because I raced that Pismo race that was before we went there on the works. There was a special dune ride race out there. I mean, a real race, and I got to go before we raced a works race at Pismo.
Wow.
And I missed beating the pro team. I rode solo, but I missed beating the pro team by freaking less than a minute.
Yeah, those are fun times. Pismo, I never really got to walk around it or see it.
Right.
You know, but Garen loved it. You know, he wants to go back, but I don't know if I'll ever go back to Pismo when we got what we have in our backyard. You know?
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
You know, you got to cross that one water section area to get in, and
Yeah.
if you get stuck, you're there.
A
And
lot of people get stuck.
yeah, it's just not. You know, I wouldn't take that motorhome you have in there. I wouldn't take my motorhome.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, would I have a campground and go park somewhere and truck them in and out? Probably, but
Yeah.
not like that.
Yeah. Those are good times.
Yeah, it was great times.
You know, the kids, you know, have all their trophies and all their stuff, and it's all kind of put away now. They got a couple things out, you know, but as far as, you know, decorating their walls and their bedrooms and stuff, they're kind of over that. You know?
Right.
They still like going to the
Well, they have kids now.
They both do, yeah. You know, and we got side-by-sides too. You know, we got a 4-seater Talon and Kyle's got a 2-seater Talon, so there's no reason for them to go out there and jump on a quad. Yeah, that's kind of why we're liquidating them.
It's almost a different mentality than we grew up with, where, you know, they say with age comes a cage. I've never believed that.
Yeah. Yeah, the only time I like driving the side-by-side is when it's high noon and you can't really read the dunes very good, and that's when everybody's out there.
Right.
I get in the car, you know, throw in some waters, a couple beers, and go out and have a couple stops and shoot the shit, come back, and then when everybody's at the drags, that's when you go on your good rides with the bike, and nobody's out there.
Right.
But, you know.
Well, when you're out in the side-by-side, you have to turn your buddies over that turn them upside down.
Yeah, don't wreck it. No matter what you do, don't wreck it.
You didn't give me that instruction before I went out there with you.
Oh, that was fun, too.
Oh, it was a blast. Thank God the car didn't get hurt. Thank God Valeria didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
It was great.
I don't see you driving that one again, though.
He said I can take it anytime I want, and I'm just leery. And my wife, I love her to death, said, "I don't think that you should be borrowing that car anymore until you can buy your own."
Well, you got to use them to find out if you want to buy one.
I like that Yamaha. That was a driver's car. That is full-on driver's car.
Yeah.
If it had been my car, I think Lauren would have been upside down that weekend. because he got a little froggy, and he knew that I wouldn't wreck Randy's car. But if it would have been mine, we'd have brought it home on a wrecker, because I'd have wrecked him for sure. That's just brotherly love, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And him always thinking he's a little. He still thinks he's faster, but it's okay.
Yeah,
he's allowed to think that.
You can.
District 38, going from the 3-wheeler to the 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
How big of a transition was that for you?
It was easier. It was like they say, it's a couch.
Right. Better technology though, because it had better suspension than the 3-wheeler.
Yeah, better suspension. I think the 3-wheeler was way more dangerous, even though I had a lot of success on it. Once I stopped riding the 3-wheeler and got on the quad and then tried to get back on the 3-wheeler, holy cow. Yeah, I don't know how I went that fast, you know? But the quad was definitely, even at Carlsbad or anywhere, it was like riding a motorcycle for me.
Right.
It really was. You could, you know, I didn't have all the high-tech suspension that everybody did. I pretty much rode stock suspension for most of it, and a stock motor for the first, half of it. But once Lauren put some performance into it and we made a few changes, it was unstoppable as far as, District 38 or Carlsbad.
And you rode in the desert when there were no tire inserts, when they were running stock tires basically.
Yeah.
And stock tires, you could pop them pushing on with your finger.
Yeah, my thing was we could pre-run then. You can't pre-run anymore. Then I don't think I would do it if I couldn't pre-run. But I had 2 sets of tires, one that was for race only and one that was for pre-running. And I actually got a whole set of them from Stevie Wright when Stevie Wright quit racing with Honda. And I got a brand new set of 80's with the wheels and everything from them. And I used those as my race. And I did the other ones as practice. And when I went down there, I would go pre-run. And I would pre-run it and find out where the first check was. And I would pre-run that run back and forth. And then I'd pre-run the course. And to me, I already knew where I was going. For check 1, I totally knew where I was going, but all the rest of it, I already been around it, a couple times, and it was great for me. Then I'd come back, put the tires back on it, go to a hotel room, sleep, come back the next morning, first race off, and had a ball.
And there were tons of racers down there back then.
Expert-wise, we probably had 15 to 22, depending on what was going on, but it was always a pretty good line,
But you had some studs back then that raced with you: Cliff Matlock, and Doug Roll, and Mike Roll, and
Greg Rowe,
the Ingens,
Dusty,
the Burwells,
and Dean Zundal.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a lot of people, and a lot of them we already knew from East County. But yeah, it was the only reason why I went and did District 38 was because Carlos Avina was taking pictures down there, and I wasn't racing anymore. He said, "You come down and race District 38." He finally talked me into it. Yeah, it was pretty spectacular. My very first race, I pre-ran it to the start, to the first check, back and forth. I made it to the first check 45 seconds ahead of second place. I found a cliff I could jump off of, and it took me right to it. Everybody else was going around it. And I pre-ran that 5 times, and I finally, my very last time I did it and I jumped it. I said, "That's my line right there." And when I came around the very first check, Carlos was standing there with the camera going, "Where's everybody else at?" That was my very first desert race. I'm like, all right.
I can do this.
Yeah, we'll give it a try.
And that you raced one full season?
I did 2 races before that and 1 team race with another guy. And then I did 1 full season, which was the FRT race, the Fudd Pucker racing team.
Right.
Which was the pros race, and did the District 38. And they were 2 separate events, but kind of combined. You did them at different times, but yeah, so we got first place at the pro one and first place.
So you won the championship and were Rookie of the Year all at the same time?
For both classes.
Right.
Yeah. Mike Roll got co-racer of the year. I got racer of the year and rookie of the year and the Fudd Pucker racing team championship, and they gave Mike the co-racer of the year with me. Fudd liked the Roll brothers.
Right.
Yeah. Which I didn't have any problem with that.
Right. You know, wasn't Greg Rowe down there racing there?
Oh yeah, Greg Rowe and Dusty and all of them. The problem that Mike Roll had is he's riding the Kawasaki.
Right. They were doing everything in their power to make that thing a race.
This thing was a piece of junk. I felt bad for him.
Right.
You know, we were all friends.
If he'd have rode a Honda, he probably would have won.
Well, he was always right there, and then you'd see him broke. You know, every time you're like, yeah. I can remember getting to the end of that deal and asking Fudd, you know, how's this championship thing working as well? If you keep doing what you're doing, you'll be the champion. I go, well, I need to know, you know, because if I have a problem or something, he goes, right now you're throwing away first place points because you're already maxed out. So if you break, you're throwing out 300. You know, you're throwing away first place points. That's okay.
Well, that's a good thing to know, right?
Yeah. But it was good. It's desert racers and motocross racers are two different worlds.
Right.
And the guys that only ride desert can be good, but if you get a good motocross rider that can ride and go to the desert and pre-run, they don't stand a chance, in my opinion.
Well, a lot of former motocross guys transition to the desert or off-road and usually have success, so they have a whole second career.
Yeah.
And they might not even be a champion coming from the motocross era into that environment. They might be, a mid-pack guy,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they come to the off-road or the desert, they become the fast guy.
Yeah. There was a lot of guys that switched over, like Robbie Nolan. You know, Robbie Nolan was my teammate when we did team races down at District 38. You know, and then some of them were at night. We did races at night, which was super cool. You know, but we did the 24-hour race down there.
Yes, we did.
And, you know, we won the 24-hour race and beat all the motorcycles and everything the first time.
Right.
Which was.
And if I wouldn't have changed that swing arm pivot nut or that shock nut bolt, we would have won again.
Yeah, and that was unheard of. You know. How do you beat all the motorcycles? And they had a big turnout on that one. That was pretty spectacular. It didn't get a whole lot of press, but that was pretty cool. Riding, you know, what did I do? 380 miles that day.
Right.
Yeah. But it was fun.
What was your the total was 1100
1180 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, Mike Douthit, and
Karen rode it. And Rob Nemula rode one lap. Karen rode one lap, and then there was another one. I can't remember his name. He was pretty good. But yeah, we pulled Karen and Rob off because I told me if you guys want to win this,
too much.
We got to have more speed. And you guys had some. I don't even know who was riding with you guys on that one. I don't even think you guys did the first one.
No, we didn't do the first one.
Yeah, so we did good on that one. The bike was flawless. They had no issues, no flats, no nothing.
Yeah, you races like that are so rare, especially at a big event like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 24 hours is a long time.
Yeah, we've raced it quite a few times. I remember we raced it on that Kawasaki 700.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah, that part of the course gets beat up. If it doesn't rain and flash flood a couple times, that part of the course, because they've got to run the same course, plus or minus.
The problem was they didn't have it exactly marked out.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
I mean, the team that you guys beat was loaded, and the second year that we won it, the team was loaded. That was went against us.
Yeah.
I mean, loaded.
Yeah.
And I believe they broke.
Yeah. That's usually what happens in a desert race for the most part. You crash or break if you don't finish. That's the hard part.
Yeah, well, we got it down to a science now. You know, we can roll a machine out there that's really super durable.
Yeah.
You get the guys, they don't have to be riding over their head all the time.
Yeah, that's the key of any race is, you know, most of the races that I've done in my life that I've won, I just felt like I was riding. You know, like the Carlsbad Grand Prix, I never went out there and wrung its neck. I just went and rode. And, hopefully I got a great start, passed a couple guys. Next thing I know, I didn't see anybody, and I just rode the whole race.
Right.
And there's some stacked fields there too, and it's just one of those things. I love this place. I'm comfortable with it. I'm on a bike with stock suspension, and all these guys got all these A-arms and all this crap, and it's like, it's not doing you guys any good.
Right.
Yeah, and but
you had some legendary wins there.
Yeah, Carlsbad was very good for me.
I think you won it 7 or 8 times, didn't you?
The TT track.
The GP.
The GP track we did, a bunch of times, and then they had the TT track there.
Yep.
That was on a 3-wheeler.
Right.
Not like 11 times in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a good time too. That was actually a pro race.
Right.
Yeah. That was a good TT track that had some pretty good jumps.
Yeah, that coming out of that sweeper turn.
Yeah.
That was awesome because you didn't never let off.
Never let off. You're going about 80, 90 feet.
Yeah, you would launch it.
Yeah.
That's the jump that Co seized on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Back when I didn't totally understand what was going on, but he was pissed. Threw him on the ground. There was some wrenches and tempers flying.
Yeah. Yeah, I've raced against him a few times, and he never had very good luck. But he was pretty much at the end of his career, I think.
Yeah, right after the Suzuki thing went away, he went away.
Yeah.
He won some Golden State stuff where he made some money.
Yeah. I don't know what Honda paid him.
He never has alluded to what it was, nor did Marty. Well, they got paid well, but he said that the riding the Suzuki in the Golden State Series was very lucrative.
Yeah.
Because it was a single moto, and to win that moto paid more than the pro bikes.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, he said freaking he loved it because he'd go race his one moto.
Yeah.
Make a freaking check and freaking, yeah, good.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing with Carlsbad. It was so close, It wasn't much of a drive to go.
No.
Same thing with Verona. Whether you were doing the motocross track or the ATV track, it was in our backyard.
Right.
And if you had to go to any track that was any distance, it was usually a bigger event. But we had a lot of good stuff. Even back in the motorcycle days, there was a lot of places to ride.
There were so many big events here locally. It's crazy. Yeah. I remember some of the biggest races that we ever went to locally. I mean, we're at Carlsbad or Verona.
Yeah.
And they were huge events.
Yeah. Well, the 50th for Verona was pretty spectacular. I thought that was very well done.
The reunion?
Yeah.
Yep. And some of the people didn't even make it that should have probably been there.
Oh, yeah. Your dad should have been there.
My dad was.
Well, I mean, he should have got up and talked, is what I mean.
He
should have. I should have drug him up there, or I should have brought the microphone to him. I didn't. I kind of kicked myself in the butt for that.
I think that they were having a good time, and the people that were there were the people that were there.
Yeah, it was just you get to see all the old dads that were totally into it, and presidents and secretaries and all that stuff. Bernie Burnworth was. Got to talk to him, but he's not doing all that well. You see all those guys, Mr. Walker.
Well, the fact Daryl's doing really good.
Yeah. See all those guys that we used to watch them,
To me, Daryl looks the same Daryl.
Yeah. Drink beer and roll around down in the creek. And none of them deny it either.
No, not at all.
I think my dad might have rolled around down in that creek a couple times.
Unfortunately, my dad wasn't really much of a beer drinker.
No.
He was working on too many XRs at the time.
Yeah, that track. Luckily, it's on Indian land, and they've tried to shut them down because of the noise from Ramona, but it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully they'll keep that alive for generations to come. And once that's gone, then what?
A lot of history's gone, and a lot of what are we teaching the youth? Back when we grew up, we got to ride motorcycles, and we got to experience another form of life that so many kids today don't have the opportunity. Their parents are afraid to let them walk down the street without a mask on.
Yeah.
Come on, really.
Yeah, that's where it's going right now, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I always believed, if you hand the kid a handful of dirt, let him eat it, he's going to build some immunity. I mean,
Very true.
I was never worried about Danny Ray doing the things that I did. Maybe I would have done things a little differently with him had I known he was going to crash a lot.
A lot.
Sorry, Danny, love you.
All our kids, crashed. Kyle did. I don't think any of them would change anything. I think the life lessons you get from being in the pits and around all those people, especially when the side-by-side started coming in, and you had that much larger crowd just because they take up more room, it just seemed like you're in a bigger place, and to see all the people and, everybody out there cheering, and I think that's priceless for the kids.
Yes.
I had it, doing what I did at a different level, but, for the kids and even for Danny Ray and, all of them, even the girls that were racing out there with us and stuff, that was, I think for me the biggest thing I have is trying to help them get better. Not only my kids, your kids, or even some of the other people out there, even our competition sometimes. That's one thing I liked about works racing compared to the nationals and stuff is they'll help you. It's like desert racing. They'll help you beat them. Right. They'll give you the tires, whatever you need to go race, and you can beat them, and they're happy for you. You go to a national and you need a spark plug cap. They might not give you one because. Well,
you say that. I just came back this year from Briarcliff in Ohio. First time I've been back to the Motorcycle Nationals since the late '90s. I think I went once in the 2000s in the beginning. Well, actually, I take that back. I was working with Travis Kane in 2007 and right before he retired, 2006. So, but when I went back there, it is a huge family. Those people care about one another. They're talking to one another. The pros are naturally a little standoffish with each other on race day.
Right.
But on Friday, on practice day, you see them talking to each other and they're mingling a little bit. Maybe Joel and Chad don't chum up very much, but they have a huge rivalry going, and it's one of those epic rivalries that will go down in history. So, but all the other guys, super nice to one another.
Yeah.
This guy needs that, and they're out there helping each other.
Yeah. That's what I liked about the Work Series, and even the local races and stuff is, everybody. You don't see very many fights. You don't see very many. Every once in a while people get tempers flying. I've done it, and it's good to see.
You got excited
a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, a couple times.
I don't think I've ever seen you excited.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Not to where I want to go beat somebody up, just don't want to go beat them on the next moto.
Right.
And then show them the same fender they showed me, the same tire. It don't happen very often. Usually when it happens, it's usually on the start or something, and somebody does something stupid, you got to get through the first turn before you can win the race.
Right.
Somebody T-boned you. Speaking of that, my very first race at Verona on my Tri-Z, when I saw your brother there, gate drops, whole shot, spin out in the first turn.
Yep. Did you win the race and spin out 3 times?
Won the moto.
Yeah, you spun out like 3 times?
Yeah. Second moto, sitting there lined up, whole shot, spin out in the first turn, and won the race. Yeah.
I think that was that Monday or Tuesday you came to the shop and they cut the stops on the steering so that it would turn more.
Yeah.
And I think they put an axle in the thing too.
Yeah, it was tires, and from then on it was down all uphill from there.
What were you thinking?
What's even funnier is I think about that bike because we use that bike up pretty much. Tim Funk, which is a guy that I know from work, raced Baja, and they wanted that Tri-Z because it had a 6-speed in it. And their 250 motorcycle was only a 5-speed, so they took the Tri-Z, took it apart, put that tranny in a YZ, and raced Baja with it.
How'd they do?
I don't know. Not very good, but broken leg and all that stuff. But
And Tim was one hell of a rider
Tim
himself.
was a very good rider, especially at District 38.
He won a championship down there.
Yep.
He won a championship with one of Lauren's 500 motors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Steve Walker, Craig Iavelli.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on and on because he built some 500s there.
Oh,
They
yeah.
rocked.
Well, my 500 was badass.
Yeah.
And it still is sitting in Jimmy's garage.
Right.
I'm going to go steal it back.
I don't know if you'd be able to pry it out of his hand. You know, he loves that.
I'll have him put it in his will to me.
Yeah, he loves that bike. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he polishes on it and has cleaned it up and made it look really awesome.
Everybody that's ever rode that, which there's a handful of guys that can ride, like Josh Rowe rode it a few times.
Right.
And fell in love with that CR500. Me, of course, and then there's a couple other guys that just rode it around. But Josh, because he was lighter, but the suspension, all my bikes is soft. I like to ride a soft bike.
Right.
So when he got on it, he was expected to be stiffer than
Right.
it wasn't.
Right.
And he just had a ball on that thing.
Well, with my shoulder injury, that's the only bike that I rode. That's the only, in the last 10 years, that's the only machine that I've ridden in the dunes.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden a quad or any other motorcycles in the dunes. I had, CRFs, and I never rode any of those in the dunes. I only rode that CR500.
Yeah. Yeah. It handled good. It was a good bike.
Oh, I think you had to start it for me a couple times,
Well,
like everybody else.
Brian Rad had to start it for me a bunch of times because when I came back from New Mexico with that Guillain Barre, I couldn't walk.
Right.
And I wanted to ride. So he started it, and I rode off, and then I'd come around a turn, I'd fall over. I just sat there because I couldn't pick it up. And Brian would come right around, pick it up, start it for me, I'd get up, and I'd take it up and go ride.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that goes back a ways. Yeah, that was funny. He used to laugh about that. He still laughs about that.
Yeah. I mean, the years and years of dune rides and racing and all the places that we've been all over the western United States,
Yeah.
just you and I and our families together,
Yeah.
Not counting where you've been with Lauren and some of the other group.
Yeah, Garen went to Daytona.
Yeah, Karen and I went to Daytona.
Yeah.
That was an experience.
Yeah.
When he crashed, my phone started ringing, and I'm like, I don't have an answer, and I don't know if I should answer this. Oh boy, Kim is already hot under the collar.
Oh yeah. We were actually snow skiing at the time.
Right.
In Mammoth.
Right.
Sitting watching the race on the TV. I don't know how they got it, and eating lunch and watching it with the Thibodeaus. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, and I had to find him, make sure that he was okay before I.
Yeah, answered the phone.
Yeah, because I don't even think he hit the ground before she called me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I didn't see everything from the vantage point that I had, but he just misjudged that double, or one of those doubles. And
Yeah, set him up, and then he got bumped or something, and over he went.
Yep.
Yeah.
It didn't take much. That Supercross style set of jumps was pretty rough.
Yeah, if he didn't have a clear path for it, he was in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he said that was the portion of the track during practice that he was stressed over.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, we went and practiced out in some of the tracks they had there.
Yeah, I remember that. You showed footage of that.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
If we were going to go race nationals, you go to Florida. The nationals start in March. You go to Florida in February and you stay there and you train in the sand because that's where your first race is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Garen loved it because there was a couple other pros out there that were fast, and so we got to have a good time.
Yeah.
And his buddy rode in the back of the van on the quad because there wasn't enough seats.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I wouldn't ride on the quad. I got to sit in the seat.
Yeah. That's where they picked you up from the airport, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a good experience for him. He needed that.
I think he would have done well because he was starting to get the hang of it. The moto was long enough that he was working. He was in the second group, working his way to the first group. He might have caught him, might have passed him, might have done okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he still would have had an experience.
Yeah.
And Donnie Luce would have put us in the pro class if if Garen would have said yes, we would have been in the pro line.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Garen goes, I've never raced one of these. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, Garen, it's totally up to you, man.
Yeah. I haven't seen Donnie loose in a long time.
His daughter, Jimmy White, officiated his daughter's wedding. I don't know exactly what day that was, but
Wow.
I seen that on Facebook, you know.
Nice.
Yeah. How long you been listening, Dad?
Oh, just a few minutes.
Some of the stories you have heard, some of the stories you haven't heard.
Most of them I haven't heard.
We don't get to talk about them all the time, but Brian, I want to ask you if you'll come back, because we only got to touch on a portion of it, and we talked about our life and some of the things that we've got to do. We didn't dive into some of your career as far as I would have liked to have gotten.
I'll come back anytime.
Well, I appreciate you so much. I know how busy you are. I know that your work schedule is as hectic as mine, so it's hard to get you to come and sit down. And the air conditioning in this place is horrible. So, you know, I think maybe the boss should throw down some AC, but I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, probably not.
In that other door.
It is open.
Is it?
Yeah, it is open. But again, I appreciate it, Brian. It's always fun to talk to you. We've got to do a lot of wonderful things together, and
For a lot of years.
yeah, and not only did I get to race with you, I got to work with your children, and that was for you allowing somebody outside of you to help them.
Yeah.
Was always an honor.
The team here at ATV Talk would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to rate us on all the available platforms and share us with your loved ones. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more ATV Talk news. See you next time.